Some fighters win fights. Some fighters win championships. And then, there are fighters who terrify the entire sport. When Alex Pereira stepped into the octagon for the first time, most fans saw a former kickboxer trying something new. But the fighters inside the division, they saw something else. A nightmare walking toward them. Because Pereira didn't just win fights, he erased people. But the story of Poatan didn't start inside the UFC. It started years earlier, in Brazil, with poverty, alcohol, and a life that was slowly falling apart. Until one moment changed everything and created one of the most terrifying fighters in combat sports history. Alex Pereira was born on July 8, 1987, in the city of ARARAQUARA, in Brazil's São Paulo state. It wasn't a place known for producing UFC champions. It was a working-class city, simple neighborhoods, hard lives. And like many kids growing up there, life wasn't easy. There was no money, no spotlight, no dream of becoming a global superstar. But there was one thing Pereira discovered very early. He liked to fight, not for fame, not for attention. He just loved the feeling of stepping in front of another man and seeing who would break first. As a teenager, he started training in kickboxing gyms around the city. The gyms were small, the equipment was old, and nobody there thought they were training a future world champion. But inside that gym, something quickly became obvious. This guy hit different. Every punch sounded heavier. Every strike landed harder. Sparring partners felt it immediately. It was like getting hit by something that wasn't supposed to exist. Coaches noticed. Fighters noticed. And eventually, the fans noticed too. Because when Pereira landed a punch, people didn't just lose rounds. They went to sleep. And that's exactly how he got the nickname that would follow him for the rest of his career, Poatan. The name comes from the Tupi language, spoken by indigenous people in Brazil. And its meaning couldn't be more perfect. Stone hand. Once you watch him fight, you immediately understand why. Because when Poatan throws a punch, it doesn't feel like a fist. It feels like getting hit by a rock. Before the UFC ever heard his name, before millions of fans were chanting Poatan, Alex Pereira was already destroying people in another world, the world of glory kickboxing. And inside that ring, he wasn't just good, he was terrifying. Opponents knew exactly what was coming. They studied his tapes. They prepared for his power. The problem was simple. Knowing what's coming doesn't mean you can stop it. One punch, another knockout, another opponent staring up at the lights. Very quickly, Pereira climbed through the rankings. And soon, he did something almost no fighter ever does. He became champion. Then he did it again. Pereira captured the Glory Middleweight Championship and the Glory Super Middleweight Championship. 2 divisions, 2 world titles, all before he had ever stepped inside a UFC octagon.
Nice combination work from Pereira. Going with Belgarwi. On a right hand, buckles Belgarwi. He almost went down. Can Pereira close the show? Belgarwi gonna. That may be it. He won. Knockout. Alex Pereira, the middleweight champion of the world.
He just has that ability to stay calm, very relaxed.
But strangely, that's not what made the combat sports world start paying attention. Because Pereira's real impact on the sport came from a rivalry with a man who would later become one of the biggest stars in MMA history, Israel Adesanya. Back then, Adesanya was an exciting rising striker, flashy, fast, charismatic, a future superstar in the making. And in kickboxing, their paths crossed twice, 2 fights, 2 brutal results. The first fight was competitive, but the second one, it ended in a moment that would follow Adesanya for years. Pereira knocked Adesanya out cold with a vicious left hook. The arena exploded, but outside that building, almost nobody noticed. It was just another fight on a kickboxing card, another highlight, another knockout. But years later, that moment would come back to haunt the UFC. Because the man who knocked out Israel Adesanya was about to enter MMA, and the collision course between them was far from over. Let me stop right here for a second. If you are new here, subscribe to our channel because we take the most insane, most compelling stories in sport and business, and we break them all the way down. Most fighters start their UFC careers in their early 20s. They spend years climbing the rankings, learning the sport, building their legacy. But Alex Pereira didn't follow that timeline, not even close. When he finally stepped into the UFC, it was 2021, and he was already 33 years old. In this sport, that's the age when many fighters start thinking about retirement. Their bodies are slowing down. Their best years are behind them. But Pereira, he was just getting started. From the moment he arrived, something felt different. There was a quiet confidence, no trash talk, no theatrics, just a calm, focused striker walking toward another victim. And most importantly, the UFC could see it coming. Because the moment Pereira started winning fights, there was only one matchup anyone wanted. Adesanya versus Pereira. Again. And the man who runs the UFC, he didn't hesitate. Dana White made the announcement.
Alex Pereira versus Israel Adesanya in the rematch. The co-main event is Gilbert Burns versus the BMF title holder, Jorge Masvidal.
The rematch was official. 5 years after their kickboxing war, the rivalry was about to explode on the biggest stage in mixed martial arts.
I'm coming for his head. The last style bender's undeniable conviction that in this historic series tonight,
The UFC Middleweight Championship, and the entire fight world was about to find out one thing. Was Pereira truly Adesanya's nightmare, or had the champion finally figured him out? November 12, 2022, New York City. Inside the legendary Madison Square Garden, more than 20,000 fans packed the arena for one of the biggest fight cards of the year, UFC 281. And in the main event, a story that almost sounded impossible. On one side stood the champion. Israel Adesanya is one of the most dominant middleweights the UFC has ever seen, just 5 fights into his UFC career. And somehow, he was fighting for the world title. Most analysts didn't see it happening. Sure, Pereira had power. Everyone knew that. But Adesanya, he was the more complete fighter, the more experienced MMA competitor, the defending champion. Most predictions said the same thing. Pereira had a puncher's chance. And that was it. When the fight started, it looked like the experts might be right. For 4 rounds, Adesanya did what he always does. He moved beautifully, countered perfectly, controlled the distance. Round after round, he seemed to be solving the puzzle. But then, round 5 arrived, and everything changed. Pereira started pressing forward. More pressure, more aggression. Adesanya backed toward the fence. Then suddenly, a left hook, then another. Adesanya was wobbling. The referee jumped in. In just his 6th UFC fight, Poatan Perreira had done the impossible. He had knocked out the champion and become the UFC middleweight champion of the world.
Big kick.
First beautiful situation.
Beautiful body lock by the champ. Oh, look at these body shots.
Hard shot. Let's take a look at the end of the round here. Catches him right where the ear meets the jaw, and then that left hook.
Oh my goodness.
And Pereira gets the takedown. Look at this. Now here we go. Here's Izzy with the jab. And Alex lands his jab, and a thudding jab it was. And here's more Izzy, beautiful right hand. And there's a nice jab by Alex.
Oh,
Here's that left hook.
he heard a bell.
Oh, another right. Adesanya's on one leg. 2 more. Down goes the champion. Pereira trying to close the show. And do it.
The arena erupted. Fans jumped out of their seats. Commentators screamed into their microphones. And just like that, the quiet striker from Brazil had become one of the biggest stars in combat sports. But the story wasn't finished, because when a champion falls, there's only one thing they want: revenge. After the devastating knockout at UFC 281, the former champion Israel Adesanya made it very clear. He wanted the rematch, immediately, and the UFC didn't make him wait.
Coming for his head.
the last style bender's undeniable conviction that in this historic series,
April 2023, Miami, Florida. The stage was set for one of the most anticipated rematches in recent UFC history. UFC 287. Champion vs. former champion. Rival vs. rival. For years, their story had been one-sided. In kickboxing, Alex Pereira had beaten Adesanya twice. Then he knocked him out again to take the UFC title. Adesanya had something to prove, and this time, he came prepared. Round 1 was tense. Both fighters were cautious, but in round 2, everything changed. Adesanya baited Pereira toward the fence. Pereira stepped forward, and suddenly, crack, a perfectly timed counter punch landed. Pereira collapsed. The crowd exploded. Adesanya had done it. He knocked out the man who had haunted him for years.
Pereira so dangerous.
oh, counter right from Adesanya, Pereira down and out. Order restored. Adesanya.
Let's look at it again.
Pereira just
Pereira, hands down, just teeing off on him. Bang! Look at that right hand. Bang again. Left hook behind it. Out cold. Hammer fist.
And just like that, the UFC middleweight championship was back around his waist. For most fighters, a loss like that would mean starting over. More fights, more rebuilding, more time climbing the rankings again. But Alex Pereira, he had a different plan. Instead of rebuilding, he changed the battlefield. Pereira made a bold decision. He moved up an entire weight class, from middleweight to light heavyweight, a division filled with some of the most dangerous fighters in the world. And what happened next? It was one of the most unbelievable runs the UFC has ever seen. When Alex Pereira moved up to light heavyweight, a lot of people expected things to slow down. The fighters were bigger, stronger, more dangerous. This division had killers everywhere, but Pereira didn't look intimidated. He looked comfortable, and in his second fight in the division, he was already fighting for the belt. His opponent, former champion Jamahal Hill. The prize, the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship. The arena was electric. Fans expected a war, but what they got instead was a statement. Hill stepped forward. Pereira waited, measured, calm. Then suddenly, a crushing left hook landed flush. Hill dropped instantly. The referee rushed in. It was over, just like that.
Big early knockdown
In round 1, new division, new champion, and the legend of Poatan was growing fast. But Pereira wasn't done, not even close, because once he had the belt, he started defending it against the most dangerous fighters in the world. First came Jan Blachowicz, a former champion known for his legendary power. Pereira survived the pressure and proved he could beat the division's toughest veterans.
Trying to make an impact with some of these strikes late.
The takedown is good, but there's no damage.
Then came the chaos of Jiří Procházka. Their fight at UFC 303 was pure violence. Both men trading heavy shots, both refusing to back down. But once again, Pereira's power changed everything. Another brutal finish, another challenger gone. And then came Khalil Rountree Jr., a dangerous striker with knockout power of his own. The fight went deeper than most expected. But in the 4th round, Pereira turned up the pressure. Another devastating sequence, another stop it, another reminder of one terrifying truth. If Alex Pereira touches you clean, the fight might already be over. One by one, the contenders fell. Champions, strikers, knockout artists. It didn't matter. Pereira kept finishing them. 4 title defenses, all stoppages. No champion in the UFC looked more dangerous. And the scariest part, he wasn't slowing down. He was getting better, stronger, more confident, more deadly. Quiet striker who started MMA at 34 had now become the king of the light heavyweight division. March 22nd, 2025, Las Vegas. Inside the packed T-Mobile Arena, the king of the light heavyweight division was back, UFC 313. And once again, the spotlight belonged to one man. Alex Pereira, the terrifying striker, the knockout artist, the champion who had been finishing everyone in front of him. This time, the challenger was different. Across the octagon stood Magomed Ankalaev, calm, methodical, extremely dangerous fighter from Dagestan. For years, Ankalaev had been calling for his title shot. Now he finally had it, and he came in with a very specific plan. Not to trade punches, not to play Pereira's game, but to shut it down completely. From the opening round, something felt different. Ankalaev didn't rush forward. He didn't give Pereira the distance he needed. Instead, he stayed patient, closing space, clinch fighting, mixing in wrestling. Every time Pereira tried to set up that famous left hook, Ankalaev smothered the attack. Round after round, the pressure continued. The champion kept looking for the knockout, but the opening never came. For the first time in a long time, Alex Pereira looked human. By the championship rounds, the momentum was clear. Ankalaev was controlling the fight, grinding, clinching, neutralizing the most feared weapon in the division. The terrifying stone hand simply never found its target. 5 rounds passed. The final horn sounded. The crowd waited. Then the result was announced. An unanimous decision. And just like that, there was a new champion, Magomed Ankalaev. For the first time in his UFC career, Alex Pereira had been beaten across 5 rounds. The unstoppable knockout artist had met a fighter who refused to play his game. But here's the thing about Poatan. This isn't the first time he's fallen. He's been knocked out before. He's lost championships before. And every single time, he came back stronger because champions don't disappear after one loss. Sometimes, that's exactly where the next chapter begins. As of 2026, the light heavyweight title belongs to Ankalaev. But the combat sports world is already asking the same question. When does Poatan get his rematch? Because if the last 4 years have taught us anything about Alex Poatan Pereira, it's this. He has been knocked out before. He has been outpointed before. He has been written off before. And every single time, he came back and did something nobody thought was possible. The stone hand isn't finished. Not even close. If you want more stories like this one, fighters, founders, legends, and the insane true stories behind them, subscribe to the channel.